Peter, my name's Justin. Thank you so much for joining us on the Geekcentric podcast. It
Thank
means
you,
a lot.
Justin.
After watching today's footage, it's clear Elemental has the heart of a Pixar movie, and it's very imaginative. It's vibrant, and extremely relatable too. I find.
That's great. Well, I hope so.
I honestly, I got emotional at some of the moments. You're being credited as also the writer of the story as well. How have those personal experiences and even some of the themes in your own life influenced this story?
It's a wild thing because it's not an autobiography. Like obviously there's this fantasy film, but making any kind of art, it all gets in there, purposefully or not. But there's a couple elements that were very purposeful in the seeds of this thing. One of them being this idea of like marrying someone or dating someone that wasn't part of my culture. Like my parents wanted me to marry someone Korean. I did not. And it just created so much crazy stuff that like you were mining from. But it wasn't just me. It was also part of the crew. There were so many members of the crew that had gone through these same experiences. Not exactly, but all. And they were all bringing themselves to it. And then trying to create a space that's safe enough so that everyone can put their full selves into the work was a big priority. And I'm so proud of and grateful and also protective of like, thank you for giving what you gave, and so that was the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's a very relevant story that needs to be told, and I enjoy the way the elements are used as sort of an allegory to talk about diversity and the sort of collective behavior. You can be stronger together.
Yes,
right?
yes,
so, you were saying you've been at Pixar for 23 years. Yeah. You started in art and story, and I think this is a story that has been celebrated throughout Pixar for multiple filmmakers. I know Toronto's own Nomi Shi. She started as a storyboard artist.
Yes.
And is now, like yourself, creative VP, consulting on films and being a creative decision maker. I wanted to know, how do you think the culture of Pixar has shaped your growth and development as a filmmaker?
That is such a huge question, Justin. Geez, every aspect of working with creative folks you look up to, that you learn from. You're helping new people come up, meaning from the breadth of each step. Like for example, Ratatouille, the idea of anyone can cook. That's not just a little saying from the movie. Mm-hmm. It's a philosophy that I have seen at Pixar of like a good idea or anything can come from anyone and anywhere. Right. And so like when you're in the studio, when we show the movie to everyone, the notes just come in from everybody. And there's like, oh, that's a great note. And it's not just about like, oh, this is my job title or whatever. That idea of giving something that's going to help a movie, it just really enriches the whole process. It's such a big question, Justin.
No, I know.
It's so many layers to it.
I think for me, the way I always look at Pixar is that it's a family. Yeah. And that they really do work together. Yeah. And I think Pixar wants to hear everyone's voice and give everyone that opportunity. I think that's really great.
But these later years, there's been so many new diverse point of views that have been really exciting. And there's more movies to come that are not just about like another journey. It's continuing relationships, continuing connections, what kind that can be made, what truths can we live in, and there's just so much to mine from,
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The animation and the world development is absolutely stunning, and I think again, you guys have hit it out of the park as a collective team. Yeah. And there's such a balance between fresh and new and what still feels familiar to Pixar. Yeah. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what design choices your team made to sort of feel fresh and new while still inherently keeping that sort of Pixar look and feel.
Yeah. The idea of trying to create a character that's moving constantly was already a challenge in itself because there was no pipeline for it. We had never done that. So there was new technology that had to be made for it. But even with the new technology, trying to find a style of a design was something that we couldn't really pinpoint an answer to until years later.
Right.
Meaning we were just throwing ideas into a big black hole. You didn't know what it was amounting to. And then all of a sudden, this thing was born out of it. You're like, oh my goodness, that's what she is. And using the current technology that we had got us to a certain distance. But then there was Disney Research Group came, Paul Kaniak, one of our TD's technical directors, discovered this new technology from Disney that could take simulations and put graphic shapes into them in a 3D form that was sort of machine learning that was so brand new that they were only telling us like you could only get these in a couple shots or with a couple characters. But that team just kept cooking it until we could get it on everywhere. but it's that spirit that, of taking a challenge and making it great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, like some of the footage, the behind the scenes footage, the sort of tests that you showed at today's panel, it was really interesting and enlightening to see how many iterations you go through to really settle on what a look will be. And I can totally relate to the idea of just hitting those iterations, wanting to do your best work collectively.
It's scary though, Justin.
I know.
It really is, because you never know if you're going to hit it. I like where Ember's at now, but we just didn't know what she was going to look like for so long.
Right, and Wade, like you said in the panel, Wade was a difficult one to kind of nail.
Yeah, Wade
right?
was impossible.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's water's tricky from what I've heard. Now, you're not only a filmmaker who works behind the scenes, but you've lent your voice to a variety of characters in the Pixar universe. Socks obviously being your most recent one from Lightyear. Have those experiences influenced the way you approach character animation and the direction you can give, even from working with voice actors?
Yeah, I think, that's a great question. Understanding what it means to be vulnerable and what trust in a room means. A lot of the times we don't give our scripts out way in advance.
Right.
And so some of these performers are seeing these scripts for the first time live in the recording room when we're recording. And you can feel when someone gets clenched or and when someone is really open. And doing scratch or voice work, that's one of the main lessons that I've learned, is trying to make that bed of trust so that the performer can give what they need to give.
Spoken like a true director. I love that. Speaking of being a director, and you have a great team. You've talked at great lengths about the work that everyone's put into this movie to get it to where it is. For yourself, though, given that you've had so many different roles within Pixar, do you find yourself still like hands-on in certain areas, or is it always now? Are you letting go? Are you just about the collaboration?
I think that was an Achilles heel of mine for sure. You're tapping on it right there, Justin, was that there are things that I could not let go, meaning I was in the trenches a lot in terms of trying to get designs going. It's just that that's a form of communication for me, is to draw something out. And so I used it maybe too much, but it was something that I did use.
Yeah, I think anyone can relate to that, especially given the labor of love that this movie is definitely. There is obviously so much to be proud of with this movie, and I again, hearing you talk about it so lovingly, it shows.
Thank you so much, Justin.
No worries, man. If there was anything that you could specifically pinpoint that you're specifically proud of, what would that be?
That the crew is proud. I know you're saying that I keep hammering it, but they gave gifts every hour, every meeting that you would go to, there would be a gift of here's a bit of my talent, here's a bit of my experience, and I don't know how to thank it, just because and what they gave. I hope they're proud of the work that they've done, but that's where my pride lies.
Well, it sounds like there's a sense of sincerity there, and they surprised you. They surprised and delighted you.
Yes, all the time,
right?
Yeah.
So, well, listen, it's clear that this is a Pixar movie. Elemental is a Pixar movie in more ways than one. And like many Pixar movies, there's always a strong message, and a message that is relatable and very relevant, like I was saying before. What message would you hope, or do you hope, that audiences would take away?
Boy, I mean, I want to have a fun time in the theaters. That's the major thing, that having these element characters that do these crazy things was one aspect that we had a lot of fun and a lot of pride in building. But ultimately, when I got lost or when I was having a tough time with the story, the North Star for me was just the simple idea of gratitude and being thankful for the sacrifices that our parents had made for us, or anyone in your loved life that took a risk to help you out in something. That idea was something that resonates throughout the whole film, and if people walk away, being grateful for something like that, I'll be a happy man.
Yeah. Well, Peter, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Justin.
And watching the footage was an absolute delight. And just to say, I always believe that filmmakers who put their love into the films, it comes off the screen and it jumps into the audience.
Oh,
and
I hope so.
I can definitely feel that from watching this, just these moments of Elemental. So I really appreciate you taking the time coming to Toronto to see all of us here. So really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Justin.